So this is the second lecture of the lecture series on Matthew Arnold's Culture and Anarchy. In the previous class, we had discussed about Matthew Arnold's conceptual basis, influences behind writing this social treatise. And today we are going into the text proper. Again, we'll look to see how much we can go into it today. So I had given you an idea of the major ideas which are uh, the major idea about this entire novel is about this entire essay is that it, he's of the opinion that democracy is going to bring irony, is going to bring anarchy, and the only way to stop this anarchy is by binding the entire society by a culture. And to find an answer as to how to bind in a culture, he comes with three words. He divides British Victorian society into three categories: barbarians, Philistines, and populists. And he says that the Philistines are the key to the creation of a culture. He says that the barbarians are the aristocrats who are so self-involved about their title, their money, and their everything that they have no ideas to input, or they have no points of influence to give to the creation of a culture. Whereas the populace, that is the working class, is so raw, so uneducated still, that even they have no points to provide to the creation of a culture. So who has? It is the new middle class, the Philistines, who are rough, but who have plenty of energy, who are not moral, but who do have education. And so if they can be humanized in a proper manner, then we can perhaps say that culture can be created. So we go into the first chapter, which is sweetness and light. Okay, now not all the chapters are important, but you need to have an overview. You need to know what chapter's point is what. So sweetness and light. So in the first chapter, the author lays the foundation, the fundamental foundation of his perspective of the definition of culture. So he tells us what he feels by culture, what culture is. And what is culture? Culture culture is a system, a regulation that perfects the way society operates. That according to Matthew Arnold is culture. So what is culture? It is any form or regulations or rules that bind society in such a way that society gets expressed in the best perfect possible manner. In seeking perfection, there are two requirements: an eagerness to learn based on seeing things as they really are, and an effort to ensure that the rest of the society is constructed upon this knowledge and recognition. So he puts three things onto the table. So first thing is to learn to see things as they really are. And he says that the Philistines have to see society and learn for what it really is, not what society is showing itself to be, and then make an effort and then show the society what they have seen. So first, for the creation of what is culture? Culture is a set of regulations that perfects the way society is run. And how to create a culture? Two ways. First, you need to study culture itself, society itself, see what is happening in the society, idealize what is right and what is wrong from the society, and then show and teach these things to the others. Who are going to do this? It is the Philistines, the middle class. As a result, the irony is that culture is never completed because perfection cannot be attained. Culture is always in flux and adaptable. Now, this is again something that not Arnold does not point out clearly. It is something that we are pointing out, is the fact that the way society operates or culture operates changes with every possible day, changes with every possible situation, changes with time, changes with everything. So is it possible to find perfection? So how are we going to find perfection if we cannot finally understand how society works, because it is always in flux, always changing? So can perfection be attained? This is a question that Arnold did not content himself with. The second chapter is of the name Doing as One Likes. Rather than an assertion of philosophy in the first chapter, the second chapter is really like a response essay. So in the second chapter, what Arnold does is that Arnold brings about how democracy is making society anarchic. How with the creation of the middle class, how the middle class has become the new uh, the new powerful class of the society, and how democracy, which wants to give rights to each and everyone, is making society anarchic because it makes everyone feel that they can get what they want. And if they do not get what they want, then they have the liberty to protest against it. This brings anarchy. Matthew Arnold is of the opinion is that to make the society perfect, you get some things, you don't get some things, you lose some things. It is a kind of a two-way process. You can't get everything. Some things you have to sacrifice. The point that Matthew Arnold wants to make is that with the coming of democracy, people would no longer want to sacrifice. They would want what they feel they deserve, and this is going to create anarchy. Now we come to the third chapter, the most famous chapter, Barbarians, Philistines, Populace, where he distinguishes them. The barbarians are the privileged aristocracy, the Philistines are the middle class, and the populace is, he does not speak so much about the populace, they are just the working class. So as I was telling you, the barbarians are too self-involved, too caught up in their illusion of power and royalty, of intellectuality, that they have nothing to offer to culture as it is. The populace, just like the barbarians, are so refined that they have nothing to offer. The populace are so not refined that they have nothing to offer. They are too crude, they are too harsh, no education, they have nothing to offer. The only society that can shape a culture is the Philistines, because they are educated, they have money, they are becoming powerful. But then again, what what Arnold is saying is that the Philistines are educated, but they are rash. They are energetic, but they are not moralistic. They are not moralists. They are not moralist people. And so Matthew Arnold is of the opinion that it is these Philistines who must be humanized. They must be taught in a proper fashion, that their education and their outlook should be changed so as to create a proper culture. Because it, and he invests all his points onto the Philistines because he feels that it is only the Philistines that can shape the culture. Now we come to Hebraism and Hellenism. What is Hebraism and Hellenism? Hebraism, it means, comes from Hebrew, which is Jewish, and Hellenism comes from Hellas, which is Greek. These are Greek traditions. The Hebraic system is too taxed by the wages of sin and is much closer himself to Team Hellenism, which embodies those twin principles of culture, seeking knowledge and seeing the world as what reality is. Uh, Again, so Matthew Arnold is a religious man. Matthew Arnold, as I told you in the previous lecture, Matthew Arnold looks to overturn the loss of faith in religion. He looks to overturn art for art's sake. So, but then he's not a rigid person. He's not, theologically, he's not a rigid person. And this is evident by his adhering to Hellenism and not Hebraism. Hebraism uh, tells us that we live in a society and whatever happens in that society is a result of our sins. Again, a very moralistic teaching of the church. Matthew Arnold does not agree with this. Matthew Arnold agrees with the Greek tradition, which says that to understand culture, one should seek knowledge about that culture and see how the culture is operating in the society that he wants to assess or change. The ideal, however, is very much a synthesis of the two, with the Hebraic system highly constructed and codified system of conduct, and obedience having its dark side, but are also manifesting a clear dogged tenacity in surviving a long Hellenist society collapse. Then I've written a lot of things. I did not read it much with details, but I'm just going to tell you the gist. So, see, again, Matthew Arnold ends this chapter by saying that there is, if a way can be found where both Hebraism and Hellenism can be punched together, that is the best way. Where, according to Hellenism, the Philistines will be taught, be given knowledge, they will be shown what culture and what society is and what culture does to society, and then they will be made afraid of the fact that if they do not adhere, then society is going to collapse, or how society will fall through, it is going to be destroyed. So in doing this, he's keeping the dialectic. Okay, let us not go into dialectics here. So in doing this, he's keeping a two-way process here. That is, he approaches the Hellenic, the freer Hellenic version where we learn and implement, but he's also putting the Hebraic notion in business too, which is more result oriented. So if you do not put the knowledge that you have learned into action, then society is going to fall through. It is going to be destroyed. Sorry. Then we come to the next chapter, which is the second last chapter, which is Porro unum est necessarium. This is a Latin name, which means but one thing is needful. Porro unum est necessarium. He was a learned person. He was part of the clergy. He was a learned person. So Latin was a language of the clergy of the church, and especially those intellectual within the church. The essays were written at a time when Puritans dominated the discourse of British theology, and for them, the one needful thing, most virtuous above all, was the wanted Puritan worth ethics. The entire ideological framework of the text is that the ideal balance of the state is moderation. Okay, I just give you a slight detail, and then we are going to stop here. We are not going to proceed further. The thing is, but one thing is needful. What is needful is that improvement and is what is needful. So society cannot break down. So what is Porro unum est necessarium? The most needful thing is the idea that society needs to be held together by a culture, and so to do anything that is needful is absolutely essential. Now, what that needful is, we will come in the next lecture. So I hope you've understood these 3 chapters that we have done today, 4 chapters, I guess, that we are doing today. Especially what Arnold thinks about the barbarians, Philistines, and the populace, and how he feels that the Philistines are the best place to create culture. First, we need to understand this. Only then we can understand Porro unum est necessarium and Hebraism and Hellenism. Again, going to explain Hebraism and Hellenism in bit more details in the next lecture. I hope you've got the point up till now.